Hi guys, my name is Tyler Beckley, and thank you guys for watching Barbells and Black Belts. In this episode, I'll be talking to my friend Gabe Sanchez about the differences in no-gi, grappling, Jiu-Jitsu, submission wrestling, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the gi. Thank you guys for watching, and hope you enjoy the episode. Hi guys, my name is Tyler Beckley, and welcome back to episode 7 of our podcast series, Barbells and Black Belts. Today, I have my friend Gabe Sanchez. Gabe, thank you very much, sir, for coming in today. And our topic today is going to be gi versus no gi, and I say that as just a title, guys. It's not versus. To me, it's gi and no gi, but a lot of the comparisons and stuff, we're going to be talking about a lot of the different things that make gi and no gi different, some cultural differences, gym differences. We're going to put kind of our take on it. My friend Gabe is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he owns his own academy up in Port Clinton, but I'm going to hand it over to him to tell him about himself.
See, I've been at this for 20 years now. Have a school up in Port Clinton, Ohio, right downtown. Small school, but I tell you what, we have a great group of people. I love going in there every day. Really, that's about it. I mean, I'm a pretty low-key type guy, pretty chill atmosphere in my school. Most people come in are like, yeah, it's very welcoming. You know, you guys are, it's happy to come in here. It's a happy feeling. I'm good for that, because I've been in gyms that have just been kind of scary.
I will completely attest to that, and that's kind of like a little bit of the topics like we were going to talk about on the show too. And so I'll kind of get right into it. Like we were talking on the pre-show, some of the things that we feel are important about this, and sometimes it's just like some of the questions that we get often from people. Like say we get students that come in, and it's always like, in this case, I'll just tell you, it's always like the 19, 20-year-old kids that come in, and they're just like, I don't know, they follow Craig Jones or something like that, you know? And they have like sometimes biases in their head and things like that. So sometimes people, I feel, have misconceptions in their heads about like gi being closely or too far away from MMA. I was a professional fighter myself, and they always think like no-gi grappling is just going to be like MMA, so I should do that because they don't fight with clothes on. And I'm just like, yes, but, you know, you're losing core concepts and just training too. Like, you know, training in both, you know, and the practicality of these things. But, and then also some of the things we always hear about, like self-defense and things as well. So we're going to just talk about, again, some of the differences. And, Gabe, let's go ahead and start off, I guess, the first introductions as well about how we know each other. And, man, how long since we met, man?
I mean, I would say early purple belt, maybe blue belt-ish when I started coming up to Toledo to train with you guys up there. I'm going to say purple belt. Yeah. That's kind of what I
You just told me a story this morning. He brought a couple of guys from his team up, and then there was a couple of guys from our different academies in Fostoria and Upper Sandusky. We got together and did some team training. He told me a story where I shot in and I broke his thumb, basically. He hit his thumb on my head.
Horrible hyperextension. I went to check his head, and he went right underneath, and my thumb bent back, and it's been acting up recently. My grips are a little weak right now, and yeah, it's his fault.
Do jiu-jitsu, they said. But we used to be in Ribeiro Jiu-Jitsu, and we met up in Toledo, Ohio. And I remember, like, on a lot of the Saturdays, like, you guys would stop in as well. And that's me and Gabe became good friends. And then if anybody who's watched different parts of the show, I tried to tell this to Amy. I think it was Kyle I had mentioned on my first podcast. I told a story about you. And it was Gabe was one of the first guys that – Gabe, how much you weigh?
150, 55.
So I rolled with a 155-pound guy, and I'm like, why can't I throw him around? And it's like, you know, I was like a blue belt, and I was an MMA fighter, and I played college football and stuff. And Gabe was just moving around all my stuff. And, like, you and Justin Weir were, like, the two guys that, like, okay, why am I trying so hard, too? Like, they just seem to be like, all right, you big ass. Like, I'm just going to redirect you. And it's like, so those were the guys that really, like, opened my eyes where I had to stop being a meathead essentially. So, because Gabe's jiu-jitsu was so good that I was like, dang, man, okay, all right. There is something to this technique stuff, as they say.
Yeah, I had whether it was a blessing or a curse, I don't know, but when I started, it was everybody your size and bigger. Like, for me, when I saw somebody come in 185, 190 pounds, I was like, yeah, I got somebody my size, and not quite my size, but
yeah, close enough, closer.
Yeah, exactly. And so dealing with big guys was always, I actually for a long time liked rolling with big guys better because I could find that space, and I found going with somebody my size that knew how to cut all that space down. I was like, oh man, now I really got to work. Like, what's up with this? But it was my last loss, or my last match even at Purple Belt. I lost in New York. It was in the finals in the absolutes, and I had a guy, he was probably around your size, and he beat me with Spider Guard. Beat me by a sweep, and he just played that guard so well, and he was just like, he didn't speak a bit of English, but it was enough. And afterwards, I was thanking him and stuff, and I said, you did good. And I was like, no pressure. And I said, no pressure. Mm-hmm. And he goes, you, no pressure. Like, isn't like, no, you're like, he played Spider against me. He kept me at a distance. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, all right, I'm going to try to figure you little guys out, because like the game you're playing is exactly in opposition. You're just like, I'm going different directions, and I'm going to play games that favor me against, these big guys and their smash pass and whatever. Right.
So, yeah, just to continue on with like kind of the next thing from the common things that we get from no-gi and gi, I'll just start with the first word that's on mine is grips. And that's a common thing that I constantly get.
Right.
Because in jiu-jitsu, we have the ability to grab your sleeve, grab your collar, grab your pant leg, whatever else. In no-gi, you can't do that. You got to grab a wrist, you got to grab things. And so friction and slipperiness is obviously a thing. So let's start there. What do you think?
Yeah, there's definitely, as far as no-gi grips are concerned, I look at it as, you have your claws. You're clawing everything, trying to get an underhook, some sort of pummeling inside hook, and controlling more meaty parts of the body, shoulders, hips, knees, the neck, stuff like that. And it is frustrating, especially for somebody pushing 50. You get these young bucks coming in that are moving super quick, slippery, and that's when I miss my my gi grips. I will say being a wrestler, you would think that I would transition to no-gi, which I did transition to no-gi fairly easily. But I enjoy gi so much more. And I think it is because of the technicality of the grips, understanding grips, where to place them, not just a death grip to hold on for dear life, but, why do I have this grip? Is it useful to me? Should I let go of it now? And those are the things, when you're watching, and I talk to my students about this because they laugh at me because they'll say, well, did you watch this no-gi match? I'm like, yeah, I did. Well, what'd you think? And I'll tell them what I thought. And well, wasn't it exciting? I was like, it was kind of boring. They're like, no-gi's boring to you? I was like, yeah, it is kind of boring to me because it is just a lot of slip, and it's fast moving. I get that. It's fast paced. But as far as the technicality of it is kind of lost a little bit. And that's what I really love about the gi is, if you're bad with your grips, you're going to be bad with a lot of other aspects of it. But, that can transition to no-gi as well. If you're horrible with your no-gi grips, you're never going to be able to control somebody. Then it is, you're just, scrambling for your life at that point.
I pretty much agree with everything you say on that one, and not to, because I know like part of our podcast and like me and Gabe agree on a lot of these things. And so like, I try to at least talk the other side, and especially some of my people that listen to the podcast too, that, they listen to it for other reasons. They're members of my Finley Barbell Gym, things like that. A lot of like, what me and Gabe, I think, both agree on this one is that there's purpose to each one. And it's like singling yourself out from the purpose of each. So if you don't know how to do a 2-on-1 wrist control, that's a problem. That's a problem from multiple positions in jiu-jitsu. And it's fundamental for folk style wrestling or something like that. Or no-gi obviously is the next, way you would use something out of like, basic wrestling. So some of us, we do that naturally. But if you came from, say, just judo stuff, I've particularly talked to judo people that they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. And they didn't know that 2-on-1 grip position as well, because they don't do as much ground stuff and everything in the new Wazi. But I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the grips and what the purpose and functions of them sometimes are too. Like, I mean, I've heard from younger guys that say, like, they're like, yeah, they just want to hold you and stuff. And I'm like, bro, you can do something about that. Like, that's part of it. They put a stopper on there. Like, yeah, they just want to hold me down or something. Like, you could try not to get held down. Like, I do a good job of it, sometimes. But it's like, to the point too, there's also, not to get a whiteboard out or anything and draw like graphs and stuff, but there's physics involved here, and there's a lot of stuff to where you have to use your brain. And like, I mean, Todd's calling it the T-guard. I'm not sure if I showed you that. It's kind of a dogfight grip where you go across in the octopus, but you're grabbing on to like an inside elbow grip here. That like bagginess of the sleeve, and you kind of lock that, and it kind of locks their shoulder right up against you because you're sitting up into them. So point being that, like, you've now created another angle, you've created another lever point from there too, because now I have the inside grip, where that's not a thing in no-gi. Like, that would not be an availability to you. You'd have to slide under the octopus or something else. So I guess to the point here, each offers kind of their own challenge,
Yeah, they do. And as long as you understand, your levers and fulcrums, they translate, from one to the other fairly easily, whether you're going, double grip on the collar, or, you're going to an S grip here, or, your thumb grip, or whatever, the case may be, so, but mechanically they're pretty much the same.
It's, I like, when we went up to Toronto the last time with George, like, he was doing, a variation of, kind of smash pass, but he wasn't doing like pin. Like, I always do gi pin. So when I'm doing like riding the hip, and I'll go up into a tripod, and then I kill the leg, and we call it stapling. So we staple it to the floor. And so he was doing the no-gi style. So instead of, you go at the hip, so you go body lock style, and then they go to their side, and then you pick up the feet instead. So you pick up the feet, and then he tries to gather the knees together, and then you can go either side. And I'm like, okay, so it was a no-gi version, so it adds to the arsenal. And he goes, what do you do when you can't get a pant grip? And I'm like, I usually choose a different pass. And he's like, no, you don't. You do this, instead. So to George's point, he's like, you don't always have those grips. Sometimes it's very good, and blend them together. Absolutely. Why not? You know?
Definitely learning how to staple, and, if I don't have a grip to be able to put that to the floor, then, what, my elbow works, my forearm works, my shin works, my knee works, whatever,
And to the point of like one and the other, because one of the prompts I was going to ask Gabe on here, I guess I'll just ask it now since we're here. It says, Gabriel, what do you think gets lost when someone trains only no-gi or only in the gi? Because you just gave me an example where you used both no-gi and gi, and you gave me multiple examples where you could achieve the task,
Right. I think, really, if you're looking to become a black belt, you need to be proficient at both. Plain and simple. You can't specialize in something and consider yourself a jiu-jitsu black belt. But that, kind of goes along with my idea of no-gi to me anymore, I don't think is jiu-jitsu. That's submission grappling. If you're not training in a gi, and where jiu-jitsu comes from, the whole idea was to be able to grab armor, to be able to use that person's clothing against them. And, that translates, whether you're just doing sport jiu-jitsu or self-defense, in the street. And, they always, that's the argument, is no-gi the only true path to self-defense on the street? Well, the way I look at it, unless you're living on a beach in the deep of the Amazon, deep of Southeast Asia, where you're in a loincloth, you go in the deep of the desert, they have a bunch of clothes on because they're protecting themselves, from the sun. So there's going to be something to grab.
Sure.
Whether it's a T-shirt that you can hike up and turn into a rope, or, a pair of shorts or whatever, you change your grips, but there's a grip there, So I don't know. I think it's kind of a failed argument. It's not completely thought through.
This is where I was telling you pre-show I was probably going to venture into kind of my philosophy on this too. In business school, when you make a business, your first thing is to get a mission statement, because when you come up with a mission statement of what you're going to do, like Finley Jiu-Jitsu Academies is strengthening communities through the practice of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So getting together with a group of people, training, getting better, sharing ideas, sharing health tips, sharing these things. Like we do events, that raise money or whatever. So, but either way, like it's the mission, it's going towards the mission statement. So if we do things like getting on a podcast and giving our knowledge and talking and stuff, it's going towards the mission statement. We're trying to spread knowledge. A lot of these guys, like, I think they're lost in their logic because it's like, okay, well, what are you trying to do? What's your mission statement? What are you going to do? And then they're like, because if your argument is like that you can grab clothes and stuff on the street, so that's what I'm doing. I'm like, yo, how many fights are you getting in? Like, what is that? That's your mission? That's why you're doing jiu-jitsu, Like, if your mission to these things is to learn jiu-jitsu, be a part of a community, strive for things, compete, like as a competitive outlet, things like that. I think they both check a box, but neither check a box of like everything. Right. And so I think people overthink it. So as we were talking in the pre-show, I'm like, these people want that fallacy of optimization. Like they're already thinking like the path to the world championship black belt, which is going to get me in the UFC. I'm like, bro, you haven't had a class yet. Like you need 10,000 classes is what we were saying in the pre-show a little bit to get to that black belt. And it's like, so they're already putting these like labels and things like that. I'm like, get into class. Like we have more gi classes than no gi classes because one, I'm in your camp too. I feel like jiu-jitsu is in the gi. I'll use a quote that I heard from one of our instructors from the past, and he would say, jiu-jitsu is 100% in the gi, 50% in no gi, and 25% in MMA. Like, you could argue with the percentages, but the logic's there. Like, there's a lot less things we can do. It's a little bit different, but we're taking away things. We're taking away options and stuff. So to your point about learning jiu-jitsu, so you're not learning it all the way then. If you're
cutting yourself short.
Yeah. And to the opposite too, just to not bag on no-gi here as well. Like, there are things that you will translate into the gi that are very, very good about no-gi. And there's a lot of tightness to those too. So when you're connecting into arm bars and foot locks and, your underhooks, like you get some of these no-gi guys and you give them something to grab and they're like, man, it's easier to underhook you now. I can, And so to that point too, there's a lot of strengths from that as well, and then I guess just getting into like, say the one of the bigger ones that, and I'm kind of skipping forward into the hot topic, I guess was like a lot of the foot locks and things, like a lot of that foot lock game as well. The trope on here that we got is like kind of a prompt to hit a hot take was that it says this, I don't believe it, but we're talking about it, that footlocks are ruining jiu-jitsu. The no-gi footlock game ruining jiu-jitsu. How do you feel about that?
I don't think it's ruining jiu-jitsu.
Me neither, yeah.
For the most part, we'll say growing up the way we did, we weren't allowed to touch a leg until you're a brown belt. I never understood that because, now, especially with grappling industries, all these other tournament circuits that are coming up that are allowing blue belts, purple belts, leg attacks. Your students have to know that. They have to, you can't send them into a tournament. Now, at least, maybe that's not their game, but they at least have to understand that to be able to defend it, recognize it, and that's where when this started to blow up, I had to do my research. I was so behind on the game because, straight ankle locks, sure, toe holds, yeah, knee bars, yeah, but, looking at the whole heel hook side of things, I really had to do my research and train it, play with it. Luckily, Eli, my black belt in there with me, he was on the same and kind of in the same train of thought. And so we'd spend extra time working on this stuff, so that I can present that to my students. But on the same token, where I think it's hurt is you see so many people give position just to attack those legs. Don't get me wrong. When I'm rolling in the room, yeah, for sure. Like today we were talking about with Ben, I saw that opportunity. He pulled a K guard on me. I was like, yeah, I'm going to dive across there I'm taking that leg, But, it's that idea of you need to understand your position. If you are, what's the number one rule of jiu-jitsu? Protect yourself. right? That's the whole point of it is self-defense. So that goes with position. If I'm in a position that, I see, I can dive through and I can attack that leg, or I can sit back and start attacking that leg, and all of a sudden I miss it and I lose position. Now I'm getting smothered, or maybe I roll through and really wasn't paying attention to how they were wrapped on my leg, and boom, now I blew a knee trying to do something.
Sure.
You can't come in, especially young guys, and ladies, coming in at white belt, blue belt, and like trying to just jump into a leg attack game. Like, get your building blocks, understand your positions and what you were doing before you start, going down that road. Like I always tell my students, you'll get it. I'll teach you that stuff, but you have to go here first.
There's a bit of like crossover between like my communities and some of the things that I see from them. It's an easy one most people get, where everyone wants a pill. Like, everyone wants that instant gratification in certain things. Like, what supplements should I take? What's going to get me there? And so I think the footlock thing is a little bit of that,
Right.
Because if some people, again, to take it back to the mission statement, if their goal in the training room is to get taps, then they're trying to find the thing that's going to get them the taps.
Right.
It's like, that's the supplement, that's the performance enhancing drug, or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Because that's what their goal is trying to do. Or if they think that is going to be an outlet for a victory in a competition, this is... Most of us around here, we refer to it as meta, because like the video game thing, it's like, what's the meta? Like, it's this heel hook series by Craig, or something like that. Everyone's going for this leg entanglement or something. Like, cool that you want to play some of the meta, because I feel like just like anybody that plays any game, you want to know what your competition's doing because you can prepare for it.
Right.
I want to, it's the art of war. Like, you have to understand your opponent, and it's like you have to understand what he's going to try to do, or some of the methods that he could use to defeat you. But then some people, they don't dip their toes in, dog. They just play in them waters all the time. They're just diving into the deep end, and especially if it's at white belt, I'm like, we used to make a joke of it back in the day, and then we'd be like, a blue belt asking you about berimbolo, and you're like, dog, you don't even know how to pass the guard. Like, stop it.
Right.
Like, stop this nonsense of always asking me, berimbolo is almost like kind of really ingrained into the curriculums these days even. It's kind of weird. But back in 2014, 15, I heard Hickson Gracie say, you don't teach berimbolo until purple belt. Like, that was a thing he would say.
Right.
And to Gabe's point about, I grew up in that same system too, where we got our brown belts and we were like, why is everybody toe holding me? So because we were in a system that you don't learn that kind of stuff until then. I'm a little different. I feel like you might be a little bit as well, especially with the students that we trust and the ones that are mature. I think that's just the easiest way.
Right.
I talked to my homie Jordan, if you listen to it, but we were talking about footlocks and stuff, and he was like, no, he's like, I feel safe playing footlocks with you. I was like, I feel good with you. Like, if you tried knee bar me and stuff, I'd be like, I'll tap. Like,
Right.
Some of those guys even like, what's your bad knee, Tyler? Don't worry about it. I'll tell you if it's a problem, but like those guys, I trust them, so we can, I see it kind of like firearms, it's just like an arm bar. If you crank that, it's going to be a problem.
Right.
It's some of these people that don't know how to tap, or are cranking from things, or they don't understand that the positions that we're in are as dangerous as they are too.
Right.
So, like how you feel about, I guess, let me ask you a more direct question. How do you feel about white belts learning some of the basics?
As far as leg attacks?
Yes.
Straight foot locks for sure.
I give them a few months. I tell them to kind of keep away from it for now. I was like, way more important stuff, but especially after they get a stripe or two, I'm like, yeah.
Well, no, yeah, we start rolling with them, and it's anytime I do
compete,
right, exactly. And as I teach them, I always teach the defense, soon after or with it, and I just tell them, knees tend to go before they hurt. Realize that.
Yeah.
You can sit there, don't let the ego get in the way. Somebody can be, just cranking on your leg, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Okay, this sucks. It's not the best, but I'm okay. And then boom, it goes, and now you're hurting. Like, realize that. Realize your position. Realize, again, as training with your partner, if you do have something, don't just grip and rip,
Yeah.
And we always talk about eye contact. Like, I've got this heel hook, and I look up like, I've got this. What are you doing? You see your partner start going the wrong way, let go. or hey, I got it. Yeah, you got it. Good, tap. Let's reset. Let's do this again.
And sometimes, I'm telling you, this might get us into our next topic on my list was the culture in your gym environment and your overall gym culture and how the way people act inside your gym. Like, I coach up my higher belts, like Ben, for instance. I mean, you've rolled with him before. He'll go, you gonna tap? Like, because he's like,
right. I got this.
Yeah, dog. Like,
this is locked
and
up.
And most of them, I just give them the advice of, let it go, let the roll continue,
right.
But have a conversation with them. Don't get on their ass right away. Start off with like, hey, make sure you're tapping out, like, especially if they're the upper belt too. I think I kind of give them a little bit of that leeway of like, yes, please tell the white belt or the blue belt, that you don't let your ego, like the hospital, it's only about a half mile down this way. And I'm like, don't let your ego get you a trip down to the hospital, just because, some people, because I'm trying for the tap here. And as we grow, we understand, that's a hyperextended arm, but some people, especially when they're just training hard and we're doing comp days and stuff, like you can't always leave it in someone else's hands. You got to protect yourself. Just tap. That's it, So I guess that's some of the culture too, where you get, especially maybe a young group of competitive kids. That seems to be a little bit of the trope with no-gi these days too. I'm gonna pick on Daisy Fresh. Sorry, it was an old laundry mat that they threw down old grungy mats, and now you got 200 kids sleeping in their cars and stuff. Maybe not that many, but I mean, just the general idea here, that vibe of young guys that are hungry, that want a way to carve a career. I mean, most of them, they want to be a champion. Right. They want to try to strive for something, which is very honorable, but sometimes that's a recipe for not a good gym culture. You know what I'm saying?
Right, for sure. You have to realize, if you're looking for a gym, walk into that gym, understand what it is you are looking for, and is that gym going to give it, Are you walking into that group of hungry young guys? Or are you walking into, a group of dads that are hobbyists and dads and moms that are in there like, we're doing this because we want to stay in shape. We love the camaraderie. My kids are in it. Definitely. I've got a family I'm losing, which absolutely sucks because they're great people, but they're moving away, moving down to Florida. And, so I told them, I was like, go to all the gyms you can, check everything out in the area, and see where you walk in, and are you going to find a gym that is my gym? No, because that's my personality, but you can find something that's very similar, or, it doesn't even have to be similar. You can just walk in and be like, yeah, I dig this. I like the way, that energy of that group,
Yeah, I mean, you said at the beginning too, and I was going to mention this, we got to talk about something else, but about your academy in general. Like, we went up there for the glow roll and like, I've been up there and I taught some classes up at Gabe's, but like the glow roll, we had so much fun with it. We had a great night. We went up for New Year's, and Gabe had like black lights and like a disco ball and everything. And people were just training
out. Yeah.
He's got like some members that are like in the circus, and they're like juggling like glowing bowling pins or something like that,
Right.
And it was just an awesome environment. And then the time I went up before and I did the Worm Guard series up there, like that was a great class, just like teaching your people up there. So I very much like vouch for every time I come in, everyone's like, hey, what's up and stuff. And it's like, and not just me too, because sometimes it's a little bit of like, I'm an instructor, I'm an academy owner. I get treated a little bit differently sometimes because of the black belt and professor status. But I've had friends that have come over, and students of my own that have came over to Gabe's, and they're just like 5 out of 5 Yelp review, just because of the invitedness and
it's definitely a close knit group.
Yeah, and I think your guys' goal is like the same. Like when you get on the mats, like we are here for jiu-jitsu. We're here to learn. We're here to work hard and get some rolls and training in. And when some people don't understand what that equation is too, because training to some people is what I was saying earlier. If your goal is to get taps, it's like,
you're just going in and murk people all the time.
I mean, maybe hobbyist dad or definitely hobbyist mom or something like that is like, yo, like go get other dude. Some of them don't understand that a little bit too. And I think me and you both, like with our students, we just like, we have a gentleman, one of my black belts, that's he's in his 60s, and he just went through a bout of cancer and stuff. And it's like, we're all like, he'll show you some stuff. Like, you roll with him. Like, it's good training, but you have to know, like, you're rolling with a guy that's, 155 pounds that's in his 60s and stuff. And he's got a lot of knowledge up there, but, maybe playing takedowns with him if you're 20.
Right.
Kev will probably tell you, maybe I'll sit that one out. So,
right.
So I guess it says in my notes, it was the vibe check when everybody, how someone knew when they walk into your gym, like how you want them to feel about that too. And I picked on Daisy Fresh and some of the no-gi crew on there, but
I definitely, anytime I have somebody come in who's new, after the whole, forms, gi, rigmarole, I bring him in because, I remember what it was like first stepping in place, and I was scared shitless. So I was like, this is so-and-so, first night here, and everybody's always like, they either run up and, shake their hand or, like, hey, how you doing? So-and-so, good to meet you, and as they go through, everybody is just very quick to help. Normally, we go through our warm-ups and everything, and I'm the one who takes them through the warm-ups, make sure they understand what's going on, the movements, yada, yada. But, any of my students, even, people that haven't been there that long, but are now comfortable enough to go, okay, yeah, we understand this. We've got this, here. Come here, I'll help you. Yeah, exactly. I got you. I got your back, Yeah. And, you deal with this, the turnover rate, what is it? Every 5 come in, maybe you keep 3, whatever the case may be. And for a long time, I know, right? For a long time, I had a fairly good retention rate. And I think a lot of it was because of that, is because when people came in, they just automatically felt welcome and part of the family.
Yeah.
Which I've always really enjoyed.
To something from the no-gi and gi territory on this one too. When George came up the last time I did his his instructor course seminar, and George had talked about a couple of the different things. This is outside of jiu-jitsu too. George was really given more academy owner business type things. And he asked me, he said, I know you don't wear a rash guard very much. He's like, and George, like, super polite guy too, all the time. He's like, I think you should, he basically in a nice way said, you should wear a rash guard all the time. And he said, imagine if a female comes in and their husband knows that all the guys, just have their chest out all the time and stuff too. Right. Maybe that's an uncomfortableness. And it's a theoretical situation that could absolutely happen. I mean, you just picture that in your head. You're like, I understand that.
Yeah.
And instead of like walking around with your shirt off and stuff too, where before it's like we were just the boys, like the boys would get done with practice, take your gi off, whatever. Right. And it was like, all right, I see that. You know what I mean? Especially from a business owner and the feel of that too.
Right.
I mean, in no-gi, this is getting a little bit off topic, but kind of on the same realm of the perception sometimes. I think there's that with no-gi where you can see people's arms and stuff. You can see their muscles and everything too. And getting off the topic on this, we were going back to my friend Kyle Wagner was talking about in the Olympics. They were talking about bringing the judo athletes out with their gi tops off. Because
I do remember that.
You could see how friggin' jacked Teddy Griner is, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so they were talking about the perception of judo, like when you're wearing your gi, like you don't look dangerous, you know what I mean?
Right.
So to the look of it, I think the gi is more like, it looks more family oriented, you know what I mean? Because, God, you can't even see my tattoos, something like that,
Right.
So, like, I to George's point, I wear a rash guard now. I enjoy it like I used to because you can't compete in a rash guard.
Right.
So that was always like, you don't wear a rash guard, whatever. I don't compete in a rash guard. So, I started doing those things. That's a first time coming in the door, imagine, some of our teenagers are over there with no shirts on or something. Like, the teenage girls ain't going to be wanting to come to class and stuff too. Right. It's awkward for them or whatever, however they feel. Like, I wouldn't want to impose that. So I guess culturally speaking, I think everybody rash guarded up,
Right. Yeah. You definitely, it's just a kind of we'll say a politeness.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the vibe though too. Exactly. Like they feel that politeness as well. Like, we're already sweating all over each other as well. So there is a little bit of that too. Right. So gi to no gi, where some people, especially your hobbyist ones too, the ones that care about that a little bit more, they might be like, yeah, I don't get as much as your sweat. It is, in my opinion, it's definitely more hygienic if you do no gi. you're bathing in people's sweat. Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So in the gi, I mean, we used to make jokes about Tony Ferrara where he wouldn't even mess up his hair. It's his style of jiu-jitsu.
Right.
He's like, I'm going to keep you back there and put you between my legs. Nobody messes up my hair. So, Tony, I hope you watch this. Maybe I'll get Chris to do a clip of that. So, at least I can send it to him.
Right.
So, I guess moving on here to the next common one that I think I've had this one the most is the translation to MMA. And they're like, no gi translates so much more to MMA. And how you feel about that, Gabe?
You know, having fought myself, I would say it does to an extent, you know what I mean? Because you can't grab anything.
Exactly.
You know, so I mean, it for sure does, you know, understanding how to move. But those who just train no gi and are competitors, I think are lost in MMA, and you see it, you know, I mean, Gary Tonon's had a good run in MMA, but, you know, who is it he fought? I forget the guy's name. But he was in single leg X and got knocked out.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm never going to pull single leg X in MMA. You know, it's just...
Odd choice, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not going to do it. It's not a comfortable position. Like, I don't feel protected in that position whatsoever as far as throwing strikes. You know, so I think a lot of that, you know, and you see it quite a bit in MMA, guys who were just, whether they were gi or no gi, but just sport competitors. Maybe they, and a lot of gyms have gone, you know, they push sport competition so much, I think they've lost some of the self-defense. And in MMA, you need that self-defense edge.
Yeah.
You need that idea that, you know what, I'm not going to pull guard unless I absolutely have to. I'm going to stay on top. I'm going to grind it out, and I'm going to punch. I'm going to punch, you know. And if I catch an arm, I catch an arm. If I choke you, I choke you.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm going to grind on top, you know. If I get on the bottom, I'll get to my guard, and the first thing I'm going to do is do everything I can to get on top, you know. And I think that a lot of that is lost, especially, you know, well, I don't train in a no-gi only school, but I can kind of see that kind of direction.
When I was still fighting professionally in my 20s, I had... What was I? I think my last pro fight, maybe I'd made it up to like purple belt. And it was like I started to get more of a realization of like how it could do that. Because in MMA, like I came from a school and like if anybody newer to the podcast, on episode 3, I brought in Gary Young and we talked about, he was my MMA coach. He's one of my really good friends. And our conversation was about how rough we used to be. Like we used to beat the shit out of each other for a lack of a better way to put it. Getting the shit kicked out of you in Muay Thai and in gi Jiu-Jitsu are two different things. But I will tell you, I gained more out of the ass kickings in jiu-jitsu. In the gi, I gained way more because, one, I wasn't causing myself damage. I wasn't permanently damaging myself. We shouldn't have been training that hard, too. Like, we probably were damaging ourselves and we weren't learning how to fight. And we sure as hell weren't getting the edge to learn how to fight. We were probably developing bad habits to things, too. In the gi, I mean, we'd go in there some of them Saturdays, you know, in July with no air conditioning, sweating our asses off, and we'd go get an ice bath and stuff afterwards.
And blowing hot air.
Yeah, man. And like, I'd do 13 rounds. I'd do like 13 6-minute rounds like up there. And I mean, I'd be sore the next day, but I'm like, couldn't wait for the next week. I'll go 13 more wars. And it was fun. And it was like, I was gaining so much more from the training. And then the podcast I did with the general talked about it in a military way. He goes, that develops soldiers because you're fighting battles. And you're fighting a battle that's as close as you can. I know they're like, oh, you're not shooting guns and stuff. I'm like, that dude tried to impose his will on you, and you had to do something about it. And if you couldn't, you had to tap out. And then you go again. And that guy's going to impose his will on you, and then this goes repetitively. And you can go at a ultra high rate. You can go at a high intensity, and you can't do that with situational Henner Gracie talking about how you can set up like self-defense, scenarios and stuff. I'm like, that dude isn't going to try to kill you. Like, he can't. It's in the law,
Right.
That guy can try to choke you. Mm-hmm. And whether it's gi or it's no gi, you're going to have to say something about it. And that develops that battle hardened, to your point, Why do those wrestlers just don't quit? Because they've been trained that way.
Yeah.
They've been taught not to quit.
Flip the switch, they're on.
Randy Couture will die before he lets you get out from underneath him. You know what I mean? And it's like that's because he's been through wrestling battles. Those all weren't MMA fights that did that. Sure, he got better as it, but he'll be the one. I mean, go listen to his words, and he'll say it's the battles he was fighting in college and when he was overseas wrestling in Germany and things, and then continuing on, but same though. He's going to tell you he didn't have to get his brain scrambled every time. So I think that's part of it as well. Some people think that, you're not fighting as well. Like, it's not the same. You're not like doing MMA. So, and MMA doesn't have a gi. So, you know what I mean? They simplify it so much that way. And I'm like, that dude's going to try to armbar you, and you're going to have to find an armbar defense. And I get it. You can't do lapel guard stuff. So I would probably, to be fair, I think some guys, like say if you're in the UFC, for instance, and you're like, I don't really have a need to learn this lapel guard, so maybe I wouldn't waste a lot of my time that right now I don't have a lot of. So I need to focus on that's fair, I'd say.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you've got a goal, like you said at the beginning, this is my goal, this is my
what's
path
the mission?
Where I'm going. Yep. Then, absolutely. Why waste your time on that?
I think, again, this goes back to my everybody wants the immediate thing. So sometimes Jordan, if you're watching this one, someone that we just talked about recently, where if they were telling you as a white belt, like they're going into the UFC or something like that too, you're like, bro, just hip escape, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
And they're putting all this extra thought into it. And I only got to do no gi. I can't do this gi stuff. And I'm like, who's telling you this? Like, who's telling you this nonsense?
I mean, some of the best technique is going to come from gi, understanding, your hand placements, your, where you are getting those grips. And again, does it always translate to no gi? Not exactly. But it does translate, whether if I'm getting that inside grip of the inside of the bicep up here, or am I just blocking?
Do that.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to understand that, and the gi will teach you that, because you can't make a big movement and slip out of something. You have to properly defend and, what's the counter to that?
There's another one where I kind of use the example of, in the NFL, they do catches where they try to look for the line and they'll drag their foot and stuff. But I said, nobody practices them Odell Beckham catches and stuff. They might catch with one hand and they do that kind of stuff because those are practical uses. Because when an athlete is on the field, they're going to figure it out. Like we always make a joke and we just say, be an athlete. And they're like, how do I do this, coach? Be an athlete. How about that?
Right.
Like, I'm telling you, like, I've never shot a takedown in a boxing match. Like, it's just, I've never done it. I've never punched somebody in a grappling match. It's like they think their brain's going to shut off. And it's like, maybe a little kid might pull guard at wrestling. I've had that one time, actually. He said he pulled guard at wrestling practice, and he said it embarrassed the crap out of him. He was like, wrong sport. I'm in the wrong place.
Rewind.
He's like, sorry, this was like the second week. It was high school wrestling. I think he was like a sophomore. But like, to the point though, I mean, people act like this is a commonality or something. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, you're gonna want to do that move, and you're gonna have to frame the bicep because you don't have anything there. Instead of grabbing the sleeve, I'm gonna have to grab a wrist or whatever that is, or George's pass. You don't have that. You got to grab the foot. Whatever it is. So
right.
I think that's the big thing too, and I guess that was one of the points that I'm really passionate on too. Like, is constantly when I hear people talk about like the gi, and they act like it's so far from MMA or something, it's so far from these sports as well. I'm like, one, it's only a piece of it. So yeah, you got to do, your striking, you have to wrestle, things like that. But being on the ground and being able to have someone literally trying probably their hardest, especially in competition, to do the thing that you're wanting them not to do, that's a battle. And if you do that enough, you become a person that is just okay with that. And I mean, my guy Quentin Richards, I'll just call him out on this. Like, I see Quentin competes all the time. If it's boxing, he wants to box. If it's grappling, he wants to grapple. No gi or gi. He's like, cool, I got a gi in the car. He's that guy, and that's what those battles develop. That have ball will play kind of mentality too.
Right.
And that's what it takes to get to the top. So if you actually are trying to get optimized, efficiency. Like, I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be the champion. Well, you got to do it, and you got to do it, and you got to do it again. And as Todd says, you got to run, you got to run, you got to run.
And look at every aspect of it possible. You can't oversimplify things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. I guess to finish up here, I do wanted to mention something else about the gi, because the prompt was, some folks argue that the gi is outdated, and especially for self-defense. What's your take on that?
I totally disagree with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's like, like Dion,
like you said about clothes.
Oh, yeah. And like Dion's always saying, he was just at Worlds, and he posted everything. Gi is not dead. This is exciting. This is crazy here. And I agree. And, it's going back to what I said earlier, when I watch a gi match and we're talking high level black belts and you're watching their grip exchanges, and you're like, I guess the newer people or people who don't understand what's going on, they're like, this is so boring. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, Dude. This is a chess match going on, and that's the kind of stuff I dig. I really dig watching that.
I text Todd up and I'm like, I think this was last year, and I said, is Tynan Delpre doing the same sport as us? Like, are we doing a different sport than that guy?
Right.
Because I know how hard this crap is, and he's doing that gator roll pass just to, like, the other best black belt. Right. I'm like, oh, my God.
Right.
Like, he's out there, winning through with subs and stuff. Or Adam, like Adam Orzinski, too. Being able to create some of the movements that he does with a single grip and a butterfly, like some of that stuff is like he's just doing sit up guard. Dude, it's so like beautiful to watch.
Right.
I think it's art. Like I know when I was younger, I didn't really consider like the martial artist aspect, but I guess maybe the gi's done that a little bit too. Like, and this is a little bit of the old school kind of traditionalism that comes with the gi. That I really do see it as like a science. We have an art here,
Right.
That we're constantly crafting. And Sanji Barrow, were you at the seminar in Toledo where he did the diamond concepts?
Yes.
And when he asked, he goes, who's got my DVD from 2010? He's like, throw it away, man. I got a new one. Like, it ain't good anymore. Because that's science right there. Sanji's just telling you, like, that was good back then.
Right.
It wasn't trash. You can still use it. It's just, there's a little bit better now. And then now we do this instead. And
yeah, you got to be pushing that envelope. You can't rest on your laurels like, oh, yeah, this used to always work for me as a blue belt and a purple belt, and actually there are a couple of my students have said that to me that, the last time you taught that technique, that's not how you taught it. I was like, yeah, that's how I did it then.
Yeah.
But as I've played with it more and you guys start understanding what I'm doing and you start shutting it down, I have to progress. If I'm not progressing, you're not progressing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, we dig that. We like the fact that you do that. Well, good.
I think
because that's what I'm doing.
This is in both too, so not to get off the topic of gi versus no gi, but as I tell Gabe, like I talk about things I like to talk about. Right. So it really, jiu-jitsu in general, the gi people are great about, or in no gi as well, because they're trying to find efficiency, and especially if guys are that comp oriented, you're trying to find that W, because if you can find a better way to get the W, that's what they're going to do, Right. And so they're still playing the same game on there. I just think it comes sometimes from a little bit of a bad place on there, like especially if like the conversation we had with the footlocks, like if you streamline that, like we want to be told that we're wrong. Because now you're going to tell me a better way to do it. And I thought that my way was the best way, kind of,
Right.
Not that best way is a bad way to put it. It's the way I did it. So if you can show me, that's fun to me. Because I'm like, all right, okay, tell me why my frames aren't good. Tell me, can I do something better? Because when you show it to me at your academy, I'm going to take it back to mine.
Right.
I'm going to play with it a whole bunch. And then I'm going to see if I can get it to work. And I'm going to tinker with it. And then I think probably musicians do that kind of stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Once they found like a technique or something, then they're just like, awesome, I can make cool music with this, this thing.
And where can I go from here? Where does that branch,
Yep.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I mean, I really do think that culturally speaking, most of the jiu-jitsu gyms are very much into that, but I do see a little bit more where certain pockets, and this is I'm going to pick on a branch, 10th Planet, where they focus in on certain areas so much. And I know every school's a little bit different, but if you're in that no-gi competition game all the time, you're working on takedown defense and footlock is what it looks like to the casual observers, you know. And the variation of the gi offers, I believe, a little bit more,
It gives you more problems to solve.
Yeah, more. There you go. That's a good way to put it, I guess. Let's get into just the finishing up here, some of the hot takes, some of the things that we feel that maybe we haven't touched on as well. This is a big one, especially for my students, that it says belts don't matter in no-gi. And, I mean, we can talk about it from both angles on there.
Well, this goes back to kind of what I said before, where to me, no-gi, especially if it's a no-gi only school, that's not jiu-jitsu. So how you guys want to go about doing belts, or, you know, how you gauge yourself against this person to this person, whatever, that's submission grappling. As far as jiu-jitsu, you know, really a belt is there to mark your progression. It shouldn't, you know, just because I have a black belt on doesn't mean that I'm not going to run into some young hardcore competitor purple belt that just may work me over, you know?
Yeah.
It's going to happen, you know, especially, you know, when you're talking size, age difference, it's just going to happen.
Yeah. That's life, man. That's
right,
reality.
Right. You know, I mean, and I look at it as, okay, he worked me over, you know, but did he submit me? Did I let myself get into horrible positions, you know? And that's what I try to tell my students, you know, because, oh, so-and-so, he's only been here this long and he just destroyed me. I'm like, okay, but are you still doing better than you did yesterday?
I see it as, am I training? Like, that's the thing. And sometimes I got to train a little harder with some of my bigger guys that compete.
For sure.
Because I'm still training there too. But even when I'm rolling with my white belts on there too, it's like I'm still training, you know? Am I doing that? Because sometimes I think of the mission as well. Like, as an instructor, our mission, and I've heard this as black belts too, they always say, my job is to keep you safe and me safe, you know, because I know the jiu-jitsu, you know, and you're walking on our mats too. But it's like we're still obtaining the goal. Like, we're both getting better.
Right. Yeah. And I tell them, you know, some days, you know, they're like, well, how did I pass your guard? I was like, well, you did. You did a good job. You know, you did what I taught you to do, you know, good for you, good for me.
Yeah.
You know, but there, you know, there's also those times like, well, I'm working this, you know, you said, I'm still training, I'm playing with this. And if I missed what I was trying to do and you capitalized on it, then you saw what was going on. And again, kudos to you. You know, you're doing what you should be doing.
I think when it comes to belts too, like, I mean, it's always been maybe a thing that people will joke about a little bit, about when they roll with about black belt or something, you know, like the joke about, like, if you sub a higher belt than you, does that mean that I'm a purple belt now? I'm like, no, it means you need to keep going to class. That's it. Right. That's all it means. You need to keep going to class, because if he asks me, I'm going to say the same thing. I mean, no, it means you need to keep going to class. That's it.
Right.
Like, if you go and you win worlds at purple belt adult, then yeah, I'd say you should get a brown belt.
Right.
That's easy. That if you want to put objective things on it, yeah.
Right.
Go win adult purple belts, you know, and I'll give you a brown belt.
Right.
So, but
because you caught me, you know, like,
yeah, you catch people. You get tapped all the time.
Oh,
like,
yeah, from white belt, you know, and I'll tell them, like, okay, you know what, you caught me. Good job. It's not going to happen again on that move. I guarantee it. You know, but it happens. You get caught, you know, and whether you were actually trying to roll at a competition level or if you're playing, whatever, it happens. And that's the whole point of being in the room, is to play, experiment, train. You know, it's not worlds every day on the mat.
George, I mean, he told me this with Nathan Dos Santos, and he was like, if that was the case, he was like, then I'd have big problems. Like, you know, or like, Salo rolling with his brother, his younger brother, like, you know, pretty sure he's tapped him a couple of times. And it's just like, to the point, he's like, I heard those guys being more happy that you had someone that would tap them.
Right.
Or as an instructor, it's like, dude, you're the one that taught them that jiu-jitsu too. Like, that's pretty cool.
Right.
And if inside my own head of like, I didn't let that dude pass my guard, you know? Like Logan Hazelman, my dude that owns Spartan Jiu-Jitsu over there. When he started getting a lot better at jiu-jitsu, like, I mean, he was a brown belt, like, just like, if he had a good night's sleep, dog, like, you know, lace him up. Like, because he's going to come in there and he's passing guards and finding subs and stuff. And it was weird back then, but then it was not weird at all, because I was like, that dude can give me a good roll and I'm competing, and it's like, I have someone right here that, dude, I can really train with, you know, that kind of iron sharpens iron thing too. So, or just as it stands, just like, it doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that it means that you got someone that tapped you, Dan. That's what it means,
right?
There.
It's got somebody that's testing you, and you're fine tuning your jiu-jitsu as well as helping.
Or it means you made a
students.
mistake. It could be
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I would tell my wife when we first started really, really being good training partners with each other was over the pandemic, because it was closed and we owned this place. And so we would come down here and train every day. And we would work on things and we would do live rolls. And she would just talk to me and say, like, did you let me get that? And it became kind of a joke after a while, because it's like, did you let me get that? I'm like, I don't know. Did I? I'm not sure. You know what I mean? Because like some things I would tell her, like, hey, if I give up a position, take it. I'm asking you to take it. And I'm like, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, If you see my arm hanging out, I was like, you go after it, because maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm making mistakes here and I need to tighten up. You know? Or some things I'm like, if you're doing, let's say she's doing, I don't know, just an over-under pass or whatever, and she does it correctly and she's putting pressure in too. Like, you did a technique correctly. And if I have to be a big, dumb bear just to rip out of it, then I'm not doing jiu-jitsu very good, and I wouldn't have been able to do that in the competition, because
not only that,
my
but
size,
helping your training partner,
exactly.
As a professor, you have to do that,
exactly.
Yes, one of my students, if I see them doing we'll just say scissor sweep, they're setting it up correctly, their grips are good, I can feel them like start to like push into me and start to load me up. I start feeling that and everything's there, and they go to hit it, do it. Because that means that, okay, now I'm working out of a bad position. I'm working, something else that, I'm not thinking about at that point. And it's all good, but that's how they get better. They have to feel that, how it actually works in a live roll. Because when you're repping things, it's like, okay, yeah, I can hit this. This is great. But you go into a live roll and you've got that pressure coming in. Like, why doesn't this work? Professor, no, you got it. Just keep pushing it. And that's, I tell them, like, watch all those high-level videos. Do you think all those sweeps look like, like when we're repping them, you hear that boom, hit the mat, like, oh yeah, that was that thud. I like that thud, No, usually it's like a slow melt to the side, guy pops up, gets position. That's a sweep. That was a clean sweep. No, did it go super quick like that? No. But, he hit the sweep, and that's how it goes in a live roll. Yeah. So you have to be able to, let them feel that in a live roll so they recognize it.
Yeah. And I mean, and there is something to say too, again, with the competitiveness or the intensity of competitiveness too. Like I guess not only do you have to feel that, and you have to know what that energy is and stuff too, but that's why it's so important to have some of these guys in your academy. And when you build them, like you have a whole mat, full of guys that can make me have that moment, like each time, like I have to think about my decisions, and I can't be loose. Like I made the mention earlier where me and you were doing the position training with Mount, and I'm just like if I give you that much room, like Gabe's trying to take it, he's like,
I'm going to take it.
Get your big ass off me, because he's trying to use as tight of fundamentals as he can there too. And sometimes I was saying as instructors when we roll with like lower belts, sorry white belt listening to this, but you give me a little bit more room, so it's a little easier to move, So, and not like no-gi guys don't have that. Not to venture off, we just kind of talked about it a little bit more that way. But back to the belt rank thing, I think a lot of that too, that comes from guys like Nicky Rod that come right out of college, and he's a good wrestler and he can get matches. So it doesn't matter that he doesn't have a rank. And to get rank, you have to put in time, and they want to skip the steps and they want the pill right now. So they see a guy doing it and they're like, well, I wrestled, I'm aggressive, I can do this. And they want a shot, and they want a chance on them because they want notoriety, they want visibility, they want attention. God, adults are the same as children. They just want attention. Look at me. And so I think sometimes, culturally speaking, that no-gi game does that. And so that's where that trope comes from a little bit.
Right.
Like,
I totally agree with
belts
that.
don't matter, I'm like, I'm sorry, if we play 100 hands of cards, they 100% matter.
Right.
Like, if all things are equal, if you give me a high-level, black belt guy, and you give me some guy who was a D1 wrestler or whatever, and he's able to muscle him out once or twice, sure.
Right.
Give me 100 times, and it's like...
Right.
That now our percentages work. So
that's another argument that I've kind of, like, who's Craig Jones calling out now? Stevenson?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like he wants to match with Stevenson.
Okay.
I have wrestlers come in all the time. I wrestled in high school. You wrestled. I have wrestlers come in all the time with this air of well, I'm just going to trash these guys. And they all go walking out the same, like, I am whooped. I don't know what that was all about. What the heck? And they show up again because they're intrigued. They want to see that.
Yeah.
But calling out somebody it's like calling out a world-class 100-meter sprinter and telling them, I'm a world-class decathlete. You come train with me or come compete against me in the decathlon, and we'll see how this goes type thing. It's I mean, it's a lopsided argument.
I think it goes back to the intention here. What's the business? What's the mission statement here? I think the mission statement is to make money.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of times where these come from. So you got to sort through the bullshit here. Like when Gordon Ryan did the thing with the old homeboy with the mullet. The hell was his name?
Oh, I'm drawing
Pat Duffy.
Oh, right.
And they did the freestyle match, which was a joke. Like, I don't think Gordon even knew the rules to it. Mm-hmm. He got turned like 5 times instantly and like got pointed up. I'm like, did you read the rules, dog? And so it gained nothing.
Right.
And then Pat was complaining because Gordon put on one submission that he didn't even know what was going on. And he was like, no footlocks. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, it grabbed you, And so it was like so ridiculous. And then you found out they made a ton of money off of it. And I'm like, yeah.
Right.
There it is.
There's the mission.
There's the rub, Because, I mean, you kind of watched it and it was like bad. I mean, honestly, for the viewer's sake, you were kind of like, does either one of them know what's going on of the other thing? Because they thought it would be like, you do mine, I do yours, and we'll see, how it goes. And it was just kind of ridiculous.
Right.
The best one was the best one in that sport, and the other best one was the best one there. Duh. So I guess, too, that is where I feel like a lot of that kind of trope about the belts and stuff kind of comes from as well. And I mean, they're looking at it from a different angle sometimes. If you're the kind of person that thinks black belt is best belt, black belt best, black belt better than brown belt, it's like, yo, you guys are just thinking about it different. Like that's not how things work. It's like black belt means that I got tapped out a hell of a lot more times than blue belt. Like it means a hell of a lot more times, and I've had a lot more hours and experience, and that's what it represents.
Right.
It represents more experience, time, knowledge on the mats. It doesn't mean that like you were a Kumite champion.
Right.
And I think that's where kind of the immaturity and stuff kind of comes out from that one as well. So I don't even think that's a fair thing for some of these no-gi guys to say, because most of them, they do the gi as well.
Right.
And they like it too, but they like this one better. And so you don't hear that kind of stuff out of their mouth. It's just more internet,
trolls,
Reddit, BJJ and stuff, So, and then the last one, we're just going to skip over this one just briefly, but it says the gi purists are gatekeepers. And I said, isn't that statement if you're going to be a purist, you're going to gatekeep?
Right. Yeah, it's hand in hand.
Me and Gabe weren't real big, just to wrap this up on like some of the cultural things that some of the gi places get. And I will just knock on them for a second too. Sorry if anybody from Gracie Baja is listening, but some of these things about like bowing to Elio and bowing before you get on the mats and things like that. And right, wrong, or otherwise, I don't really like care to that one. It's your academy and you feel like doing those kinds of things. We do what we do at our academies and stuff. So, but I think just to explain where some of that trope comes from, the gi purists, and gatekeeping things.
When I started, was actually in Chris's initial school in Port Clinton, So when I started, my instructor, it was a combination of Wing Chun and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So we bowed on and off the mat all the time. And that carried over to when I was doing MMA. But then I went up to Toledo and there was like none of that. And I think that was kind of more, and I don't know this for certain, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but more Salo's influence of, not worrying about bowing on and off the mat, or
probably, I would say,
and not bowing to Halo as you walked in or whatever. The way I look at it is, for my school, I have some that bow to me every time they come in, and they've trained at other schools and that just carried over. And, and when they do, I'll give them a bow, because they're showing me a politeness and I'm not going to, snub them for that. But I look at it as a general, just a general politeness, a general respect to each other, that it doesn't matter if you're bowing or not. If you treat me well, and you treat me like I treat you, we are good.
I have one or two students that call me professor all the time.
Yeah, and I have some.
And actually, funny enough, like George's whole thing was second degree becomes a professor. Mm-hmm. So they would say that, and I say, no, it's coach. And so literally when I got my second degree, he was like, congratulations, professor. Like he was so like, yeah, I get to say that. And I kind of rolled my eyes up, but we had talked about it. And he said, no, I see it as like a respect thing. Like he literally told me that. And he was like, do you mind if I would call you? I said, no, I don't mind. I don't require or anything, because people call me Tyler, you know?
Right. And that's the same, you know, like, what should I call you? I was like, Gabe.
Yeah.
My name's Gabe. Well, are you sensei? I'm like, no, I'm not sensei. If anything, call me professor, coach, or Gabe. I will answer to any three of those.
I'm okay with all three. Yes.
Right, and I will not answer to anything outside of that.
I tell people I said I'm gonna get mad if you call me sensei. Like that's right. I don't want that.
Well, with these kids, you know, they're like, bruh. I was like, I have no idea who you're talking to, but you call me that again, and you're gonna sit on the couch out there. I was like, because I'm not your bruh.
off the jiu-jitsu, but just because we're wrapping up here, man. One of my kids' teammates, she called coach. She went up and she was like, bruh, my brother in Christ. And I guess Coach Nick was like, get out of my face. Like, don't you ever say that to me. But my brother in Christ, to her soccer coach. I love it. So yeah, Gabe, just to wrap up our podcast, like, man, like we talk forever, man. It's like so cool. Like when we're talking about things we're passionate about too, just like with jiu-jitsu and building our community and some of the cultures. And yes, we got into some of the differences too, but I don't want to knock on no-gi things. Like I don't never want to like someone to feel that I'm telling them you can't enjoy this. I'm like, God, no, that's not what I do.
Whatever makes you happy.
I hope it's a good culture, and I hope it's good for you, and I hope it's positive. But it's like, yeah, you go do you, man. Like, like I like this music, you like that, whatever. You know, go do something you enjoy, and also like, as much as I kind of agree with you, it's more submission grappling. Like, it pushes jiu-jitsu, it pushes grappling, it pushes people to do things that I think build character and build confidence. And yeah, sure, if you like your no-gi, go for it, you know? Yeah. So I can't teach you cool worm guard, sorry, but you know, right. Like things like that, I see it more as in like, go get reps, get on the mat, get into a place that you feel comfortable, get into a gym you feel comfortable. Which, yeah, Gabe wins your classes too. I'm just going to go right into your plug of your gym, man.
Classes, I have classes Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I have morning classes at 10 a.m. And then on Saturdays, it's 11 a.m. And then Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday evenings at 7. Fridays, both morning and evening, no-gi. That's a no-gi day.
And it's right up there. It's in Port Clinton, Ohio.
Right downtown Madison Street. So if you're up in the area looking to vacation, you're going to the islands, whatever the case may be, drop in, get some rolls in, go to the islands, get your drunk on, whatever you want to do. You know, have a good time.
I was going to mention when we went up there, it's like it's on Lake Erie. So, you know, other than the mayflies, it's awesome. Other than the mayflies. But
well, that and you saw my truck. The seagulls are wonderful.
They don't like your car.
No, I gotta wash it again.
So, real quick, just to finish up, a lot of these, what I do is I put the links in the comment section and in the bio down on like whatever platform that you get in on this. Gabe on Facebook, Instagram. I usually link that there too. You know, like I said, I'll put the links and stuff.
Right on.
And Second Nature Jiu-Jitsu in Port Clinton, and I will put the link to their social media and their website, so you can see that schedule online as well. Same thing with Finley Jiu-Jitsu Academy, also Finley Barbell. Shout out to any of my members over there too. Thank you guys just for supporting it. I know some of our topics stay on like, you know, MMA, Jiu-Jitsu, things like that too, but I try to like at least branch out, you know, into our other communities the same way that, you know, that we do with jiu-jitsu.
Right.
But also when one of your students asked me about it, I have a Patreon page where I put workouts and stuff on there. If you guys are interested, that's also on there. Black Belt Strength, where I'm kind of crossing some of those worlds on like me being a strength coach and me being a jiu-jitsu coach too. And I get constantly people like, well, what do I got to lift? What do I do? You know, so that's where I'm kind of starting to blend those worlds a little bit too. So, Gabe, anything else before we wrap up, brother?
Nope. I appreciate the chance to come on here. It's been a blast.
Yeah, man.
Always fun come down here to Finley. Great school. And
thanks, man.
You're a great guy. Always
Appreciate
enjoy
it,
my
man.
time with you.
Appreciate it, brother. Well, thank you guys for listening too. And next month, I'm not sure. I'll get back to you guys on that one, man. Hope you enjoyed listening to it. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks.